pretty one, Ulysses. There it is.
Hello BookTube, I'm Sean the Book Maniac. Welcome back to my channel. As you may or may not know, but if you don't already know, I'm delighted to be the one to tell you, there's going to be a Women in Translation Readathon on BookTube from August 25th to August 31st. I'll put a link to Matthew Sharappa's announcement video in the show notes, and I have pasted in his little blurb on mine, but please go check out his video, and there'll probably be videos forthcoming from the other two organizers, Kendra Winchester and Jennifer of Insert Literary Pun Here. I'll put links to their channels below, and I think maybe by the time this video goes live, they'll have put their own videos. But I am... my very first Readathon was this year's BookTubeathon, and before that I had always poo-pooed Readathons as not being my cup of tea, and I absolutely loved. I'm filming this on the day 7 of BookTubeathon. Don't know when you'll see the video, but I loved it. So I am now a convert to Readathons, certain kinds of Readathons. 7 books in 7 days, that's a fun challenge. 24 hours and 48 hours, no way, you couldn't pay me to try that. But anyway, so this landed in my BookTube lap, the announcement, Matthew's announcement video, and I got really excited about it, even taking time away from reading for BookTubeathon. I was so excited in making my TBR. This video is not my TBR. My TBR for this Women in Translation Readathon will be coming in a couple of weeks. In the meantime, I realized I've read some translated works by women, so I thought I would just make a quick video telling you about the books that I've read that would fit this Readathon, in case you might want to give any of these a try. Okay? I shall try to remember as I go through the list to link them to the various prompts. There are 6 prompts. Really 7 if you count all the bonus prompts. So I'll try to remember to do that, and may have to insert it at the post-production stage. And I have recently moved into a new apartment, and as you can see, all my boxes of books are not yet unpacked. So I don't have many actual physical books to show you, other than not even the ones that I have physical copies of. So there'll be a lot of JPEGs inserted. Okay, without further ado, and I guess this is kind of in reverse order of the order I've read them, so a couple of them you will have heard me talk about quite recently. The first one being Grand Hotel by Vicki Baum, and this was translated by Basil, Creighton, and Noah Isenberg. Creighton did the first translation, and then after his death, Isenberg improved it. It's a wonderful translation. It's really a fun and beautiful read in English. It was published in 1929. It's kind of a minor classic of the 20th century. I loved it in a 5-star way. No, 4-star way. I thought the ending was a little bit overly dramatic, but otherwise it's about a group of people at the most luxurious hotel in Berlin in the 1920s and all their interactions, and it's wonderful, made into a great movie with Greta Garbo. Heartily recommend it. And that one doesn't necessarily fit. The only possible, if you can see a little bit of red, Vicki Baum's name and introduction by her in red. I think that's a bit of a stretch for red on the cover, but otherwise it's just a great novel that's been translated from German into English. I read the NetGalley proof for a 2018 translation called Love by Hanne Orstavik, translated from the Norwegian by Martin Aitken. I am not going to take the time to double check when the original Norwegian text was published, but I think it was like 15 or so years ago. This one would fit for the childhood because it's a relationship between a single mother and her, I think about 11-year-old son, and they are like two ships passing in the night, and we flip from one consciousness to the next throughout the novel, and it's quite a heartbreaking, fast-paced, dramatic, but ultimately heartbreaking story about indifference and neglect and selfishness. I really enjoyed it. A little bit earlier this year, I read The Hottest Dishes of the Tartar Cuisine by Alina Bronsky. And Alina Bronsky is a German-Russian, a German-born Russian novelist, and this was translated from the Russian. Translated from the Russian by Tim Moore. Wonderful, madcap, ultimately quite moving story about a grandiose, probably psychologically unstable mother whose relationship with her adult daughter and granddaughter from birth until teenagerhood is explored in a first-person narrative where you just can't believe how outrageous and cruel and selfish the protagonist is, but you still find her so compelling and almost in a weird way that makes you uncomfortable and riveted at the same time. She's compelling. I really enjoyed it. It's kind of funny too. Really recommend that one. That one, I guess there is a child in it. I don't know how much of a stretch there would be to say it's about childhood. And I don't have the book here. I don't think there's much red on the cover. So, but it's a really good novel, and I want to read more by Alina Bronsky. Next is a memoir of the Rwandan genocide, Cockroaches by Scholastique Mukasonga, translated by Jordan Stump. It's in a box somewhere back here, but I read it a couple of years ago, and it's a really powerful account of that genocide. So that one would definitely fit from Archipelago Books. That one would fit for prompt number 1, something that's not a novel. It's unforgettable. It's really hard to read, but incredible. Next is a collection of, I think, linked short stories, and I wish I could find my hardcover copy to show you because it's quite an attractive hardcover, but I'll have to settle for the GIF here. Swallowing Mercury by Wioletta Greg, translated from the Polish by Eliza Marciniak. So that one would qualify for both the childhood prompt 2, and also for the bonus points, texts that were also translated by women translators. And it's very quirky stories about a girl growing up in Poland and her crazy family. Really quite unforgettable stories. I'm looking forward to seeing what else Wioletta Greg does, because that was an auspicious debut in English. I'm not sure if she has had other stuff published in Polish. And this enigmatic little novel, which is so gorgeous, so I'm glad that it was on my shelf already. This should be written in the present tense by Helle, translated from the Danish by Martin Aitken. Not much happens in this book, but it's a really wonderful and wonderfully written / translated character study of this young woman who's kind of aimless. Maybe she's a university student, but you wouldn't know it. She doesn't go to class. She calls herself a writer. I'm not sure what she is, other than that she's not incredibly sexually active, but she's got a few guys that she's sleeping with, and she's just kind of dopey and mopey, but she has the uncanny observations of people. There is an observation about playfulness between a middle-aged couple, her boyfriend's parents, in this book. It's probably only a 2-page scene, if that, but I will never forget it. It's one of the most delightful scenes about a middle-aged couple that I've ever read. I love the writing here. Hope to find more by Helle in my travels. This one wouldn't fit any specific prompt, but I certainly recommend it to you. Obviously, for the avoidance of doubt, one of the prompts is number 4. Read a text translated from a language that you haven't read a text translated from before. I can't recommend those, obviously, so some of these, if you've never read anything translated from the Danish, this might fit, right? By the way, Cockroaches by Scholastique Mukasonga was translated from the French. And the last one, that would be the longest ago read that I read by a woman in translation, Triomf by Marlene van Niekerk, translated from the Afrikaans by Leon de Kock. It's a big tome of a novel, 500 pages maybe, 400 or 500 pages. And it's about a a white Afrikaans family in post-apartheid South Africa. And it is gritty, and there is so much abuse in the family. It's violent. It's I couldn't put it down. But if you don't like that kind of book, check a bunch of synopses of it. It's really a tough read, but the family is, it's kind of a satire, but also, the son, if I remember, it's been years since I read it. I read it more than 10 years ago. But it was published around that same time, like it's just published in the last 15 years, I believe. And you kind of laugh at them. It's kind of a satire, but you also feel a bunch of other emotions, and the son in particular is really quite violent, and so there's some violent scenes in it as well. I enjoy the fact that I've read it more than I enjoyed reading it, because some parts of it were pretty tough. But if that's your thing, and I'm sure for almost all of you, it would fit prompt number 4, because you probably haven't read. Most of you haven't read a book translated from Afrikaans. So that's all I got, but I will be doing my own TBR after I come back from Canada. Just thought these suggestions might be interesting to some of you, even if you're not taking part in the Readathon, and you should consider doing so. Have you read any of these books, or which of these books sound the most interesting to you? That's all I got for now. Thanks for watching.